on page 2. We have a motion and a second on the bill. Let me turn it over to Councilman Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly appreciate the courtesy of the floor. A couple of months ago, Councilman Carrico came forward with his bill, essentially said, hey, if you're in Jacksonville illegally, that's against our local laws also. And it codified state and federal law into our ordinance, I was happy to support that bill, and it was absolutely correct. This is essentially the second half of that, which says if you are accepting essentially services paid for by taxpayer dollars here in Jacksonville, and you're not in the country legally, you shouldn't be able to get it. And that's exactly the position that we've been put in by the last federal administration. They had an open border, 20 million people crossed the border. I'm not stupid. If I were one of those people, I would have wanted to get to America also. But I would have done what my parents did, which is wait in line and come to America legally. So this bill is a response to a crisis created by the last administration that states and cities across America are now dealing with. Some places are saying we're going to go ahead and be sanctuary cities. We're going to be sanctuary states. Look at Colorado. You can see the result of that. And I don't want that. I think the mayor wants that, but I don't want that. And I want Jacksonville to be a city that says we are going to take care of the people who are here legally. And only after everyone here is safe and legal and taken care of are we going to start spending taxpayer money on other people, which, by the way, will never happen because there's always going to be needs. So that's the purpose of this bill. It does a couple of things. First thing it does is it requires us to figure out what's going on because no one has any idea what's going on. We have no idea how many people in our public housing are illegal aliens. We have no idea how many kids in our public schools are illegal aliens or their parents are illegal aliens. We have no idea who's getting public assistance or any of these other things. We have no idea. No one's asking the question. So we are just in this big question mark like a lot of other cities and states across the country. So this bill starts to get at those questions. Second thing it does, it says we're not going to use taxpayer money for that. Now, in the last committee, Neighborhoods, not my favorite committee, I won't lie. The liberals there started to try to, they try to withdraw it, and they just want to put their head in the sand and pretend like we don't have a crisis that has been created by the last administration. I get it. I guess I understand that that's what they campaigned on. But let's be clear. Jacksonville voted for President Trump. The number one thing President Trump ran on was to clean up this illegal immigration mess. We said this is what we want. This is what we voted for, and that's what the bill does. It says we're not going to use taxpayer dollars for people who are not here legally. Now, Councilman Amaro came through with an amendment. I didn't fight the amendment. I understand that a win is important for me personally, to get the ball moving in this direction. We can always come back and fine-tune things. And so if that's what it takes to get the bill across the finish line, I understand if this body wants to take up that amendment. The only thing I say is let's not back down from the requirement that we figure out what's happening, right? We have to know where we are. And so that's what this bill does. If you all want to take up the amendment, I'll leave it there. But this bill has been out for 2 months, so hopefully your questions are answered. There's not too much mystery to it. Appreciate the courtesy of the floor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Diamond. Over to Councilman Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through the chair to Councilman Diamond. Thank you so much for your passion, the spirit at which you bring topics to the surface. I think this bill is going to pass. So I know you're saying getting the win. I don't think that there's a situation here where this bill does not pass. But there are some questions that I think we need to make sure that we're answering so that the full intent and spirit of the bill is what's met. So through the chair to Councilmember Diamond, when we're looking at our services, our organizations that service kids in our community, or medical issues like UF Health. Those are two areas that I want clarity in as I look to support this, because I'm going to support the bill. How do you propose that with the language in this bill here, we're able to ensure that when someone comes in with a medical condition at UF, and I believe that they are bound to treat them, that they're not in violation of a law that we pass? So I would love to hear your thoughts as an attorney, kind of a recommendation that we can do to protect UF in that scenario.
Through the chair to Councilman Freeman. Look, you're asking the two best questions, I think, about this legislation. Spot on. So we'll talk about KHA first. In order to get KHA services, you have to be in DCPS or you have to be at one of our private schools. DCPS is supposed to be ensuring the status of the parents of the students at DCPS. If they're not, that's a DCPS issue that they need to handle. And so this bill, in many ways, puts the onus on DCPS to wake up and figure out, are they following the law? They need to, right? I talked to many members of that board. They want to. They know this legislation is coming through. They know that issue is out there, and they are addressing it. So that's the issue with KHA there. The one for UF Health it's a critical issue. Someone's here illegally, but they get in a car accident, and they're brought to the emergency room. No one's checking their ID, right? They are literally required by law. UF Health is to service those people, to get them stabilized, to get them to a place where they're not in critical care. After all that could be weeks. After all that, there's a requirement to figure out, okay, so who are you? How are you going to pay for health care? What's going on? I think, and Councilman Boylan kind of got to this in the last committee, and I wasn't in any way referencing you from the last committee, Councilman Boylan. Essentially, how do you do this? If, let's say, you're a PSG, or if you're one of these other grant takers, or UF Health, or any of these, how do you actually implement this, right? So we're legislators. Our job is to say, here's the line. We want to make sure that when we're giving grants, the grant recipients are telling us that they know this is the law. The actual implementation of that, the enforcement of that, is the mayor's job, right? And I'm not under any confusion that the mayor is going to do anything to really implement any sort of consequences on anybody that they feel might have violated this law. So what I really want to do is get out of this the reporting requirements so we know what's going on, and two, to lay down the line and say, look, this is what we want as a legislative body. And so that's, I think, where we'll land.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. And you got a little legalese for me, but I track with you because we think about UF Health, the largest provider of indigent care in our city, one of 7 Trauma One centers in our state, the largest employer of African Americans in our city. I really wanted to make sure that in the spirit of what we're about to do here, there weren't any unintended consequences that can come back at us with that. So I think through the chair to Councilman Diamond, what I've heard you say is it comes down to reporting and implementation. You're not a member of this body, so it would have to be somebody on here. So through the chair to General Counsel, and then I see Mr. Dennis in the queue, but I'd call up Ms. Norris, who was at the early one. But through the chair to OGC, can you capture maybe what Mr. Diamond was saying in the spirit of what he's looking to do to ensure that we're not, when he talked about DCPS, that's a school system with KHA, so KHA should be okay. But from a reporting, I don't recall, the screen kept freezing this morning, so it was going in and out, and I missed a lot of the debate that was taking place with the Amaro Amendment. But is there a way to capture what Mr. Diamond was saying, or if he wants to try to restate it, or if you want to hear Ms. Norris try to do it? I just want to make sure that whatever this body does supports the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish in this piece of legislation.
I'd let Mr. Diamond take the first attempt before Ms. Norris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that's no commentary on Ms. Norris at all. I'm not sure I really understand what you're asking. So the bill as it's written, I like. However, if you wanted to soften the language, it's probably not the right way to put it. If you wanted to do step one out of 2 steps, and only that, what you could do is take the Amaro Amendment and pass it. You could do that. You could maybe take the DEI piece of his amendment out. I don't particularly like that piece of the amendment, but the rest of it you could propose and pass. And then the bill as it's left would be mostly about reporting requirements, and then would take out emergency services, health KHA, and would take out kind of like immediate health-related services. I think it does that anyways, but it gives people a little bit of better stomach. I understand that as a step 1 of 2. I would come back, though, just to be clear, to clarify once we learn more about what's actually happening to target that. Mr.
Freeman still has the floor. But
yes.
Freeman, I'll just say real quick, Ms. Stefopoulos has a copy of the Amaro Amendment.
Yeah, and I really I don't know the Amaro Amendment. I was really trying to see if I could limit our debate and from the 20-plus minutes that we could take and just get to the spirit of what Councilman Diamond and what I garnered from what you said was that in this language, if you were amenable to something with KHA, make sure they're protected because of DCPS, and you talked to school board members, and they want to do it, and that was reporting, and that was implementation. So anything in this bill, language-wise, that is dealing with that, you were okay with that not being here because they're already doing it over there. I thought that's what I heard you say, and I want to be clear on it. And then 2, when it came to UF, by law, they're required to treat. And then later in the process is when they have to determine and define if someone is here unauthorized or legally, or if they're here legally. And so we wanted to ensure that those members of UF Health that are providing a vital service to our community aren't breaking our law that we're passing here. So I'm not really concerned with Councilmember Amaro's amendment right now. I will get to Ms. Norris if they agree to what we're saying. That's really why I was calling her up, not to rehash neighborhoods, because I think that was just kind of going in circles. I just want to get to the heart of where you're pleased. I don't really want to consider it steps or stages. I want to consider like this is the final product.
Actually, go ahead.
Through the chair to Councilman Freeman. So I think we could pass the bill as is. I do, right? However, if someone wanted to pass an amendment, I have a history of taking very strong stances sometimes and being very loud about being upset with my bills getting messed up. I would understand if people wanted to do that in order to get the bill through. That's what I'm saying. I'd rather not, but I understand if folks want to do that.
You could, Mr. Freeman.
I agree with you, but aren't we creating a law that then forces medical providers to break our law if they treat someone? Because by law, you said they have to treat them by law. And then if they determine that it's unauthorized, what then does this bill that we're passing, what position does that put them in?
Through the chair, and maybe OGC wants to weigh in on this, this is about the city of Jacksonville funds. So UF can do whatever they want. It's not an entity of the city of Jacksonville. It just isn't, right? It takes some of our money, but it's not Jacksonville. But Mary's standing up. Maybe she can sharpen that knife for you.
Thank you. So through the chair to Councilmember Freeman. So if you wanted to ensure that the bill does not affect UF, because the city does have a direct contract with UF that we provide funding for indigent care and related medical services, you could amend the bill to just include an exception for medical services so that way you know whether it's UF or another entity that's providing medical services that they're not going to be included in this provision. But of course, the introducer may feel differently or have something to say about that recommendation.
Through the chair to OGC, thank you for that, but there are some medical services that I don't agree with or support, so I'm a little leery on just having a blanket statement of medical, and UF's not doing it, and so if we just limit it to UF, I'd probably be okay with that, but if it's a blanket for anybody that's providing medical services for people, I would have a little heartburn unless I know every medical procedure that we're talking about.
You could also limit the exception to indigent care medical services if you wanted to target that particular contract that we know with UF. We're providing city dollars for medical services.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair to Councilman Diamond, because I'm not going to put anything forward unless it's something that you feel. Okay, so through the chair to Ms. Norris, is that something that gets us closer to a step in the direction that you all may be amenable to?
Am I on? I'm on. Brittany Norris for the administration. It gets us a step in the right direction. Ideally, we would like to narrow the scope of this very broad legislation to alleviate vulnerable populations being targeted. And so our mind, it was medical services, it was welfare services for labor and sex trafficking, and it was also not targeting kids. So we think that there is room here to narrow the scope. Our concern also comes as far as UF and the Jacksonville Symphony and stuff like that. We fund capital projects. UF Health is actually receiving money for the trauma center, which required a waiver of the same section being changed. So that is not the indigent care. That is actually a facility from which they will provide service. So how that moves forward, that's a place where we would want clarity. So we think that including an exemption for medical services for vulnerable populations it's our preferred move. There's also a second amendment, if I can, that we are open to, which would remove, basically it removes any code changes, but it keeps the reporting requirements on the city as far as the federal grants, the housing, all that good stuff, which seems to be a focus, and we're open to that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Norris, for that. Well, I know for me, Councilman Diamond, always a huge champion for making our city the safest and the best it can be. And so I trust them, and when it comes to the KHA piece with the school board, I'll definitely keep my ears open if Council Vice President, President-elect has anything else to say. But for me, I would, if it's okay, I would like to offer an amendment on the UF Health piece to ensure, and Councilman Diamond's going to have to help me with the legalese part, but to ensure that we are not putting our medical providers in violation of our law by passing it. I don't know how to word that, but that's what I would like to do, offer as an amendment if someone can help me. And I don't know if that's you, Councilman Diamond. I don't know if that's Mr. Pear, if it's, but that would be where I'm comfortable in adding an amendment. And if anybody else has more, I'm willing to listen.
For clarity, over to Mr. Diamond to answer that, but for clarity, we have a $50 million contract with UF Health for indigent care, and that could potentially be what's exempted out by what you're getting at. Over to Mr. Diamond.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe to provide a little bit more clarity from the three things that Ms. Norris talked about, one, you could just exempt UF Health from this. I mean, that's the easiest way. The second is, I do think you ought to include the sex trafficking. If somebody was trafficked into Jacksonville, like, that's not their fault. So if there's some sort of any funding out there for them, like, I think that would make sense to take that out. Candidly, we just didn't think about it when we drafted the legislation. As soon as it was brought up, I was like, oh, that's definitely coming out one way or the other. And the third is you could just exempt KHA for a year until we figure out what they're doing and the school board has a moment. So those are just quick three ideas.
So moved. Yeah.
All right. We have a motion, and Ms. LaPera, will you repeat the motion? I think there were three parts: UF Health, sex trafficking, and KHA for a year.
Yes, through the chair to the committee, it would carve out UF Health and make them exempt from this provision. It would exempt labor and sex trafficking victims and people who provide such services to them, and exempt KHA for a period of 1 year.
All right. Everyone who's on the queue, please stay on the queue. I'm going to go down the names and ask if you want to speak on the amendment before we vote on it.
Was there a second on the amendment?
Yeah, there's a second now. Or if you want to wait to the bill, we have Mr. Carlucci, Dr. Johnson, Mr. Carrico. Mr. Carlucci, you don't want to speak on the amendment, or you want to wait till we pass?
Yeah, the amendment, yeah.
Okay, go for it, sir.
Okay, I'm trying my best to understand this. So what's left out after you take out, through the chair to Councilmember Diamond, what is left out that would be affected by this bill other than the three things we just exempted?
Through the chair to Councilman Carlucci, number one would be all the reporting requirements, right? Tell us who's getting this funds. What are we doing? So that's one
from
thing.
Who? From all city departments, city agencies, so forth?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Carlucci. Yeah, for all the ones that are listed in the bill, they're all listed there. So that would be one thing. And then two, you'd still have other entities that are getting city funds. They'd still have to, through an implementation process by the administration, to say, hey, you're not allowed to use this money, for services for illegal aliens that are not those buckets.
So I didn't look at the list. I have to admit, I haven't seen the list. But my concern is, and I don't understand what you're trying to do, and that's where you come from, and that's your position. My concern is that, is there an organization that could render very humanitarian outreach to somebody who may not be documented but needs immediate help? And this is where I get a little concerned that we're drawing perhaps a line, and some people can come in and some people can't. Now, if they're here and they're not documented, well, that's for the feds to take care of. But it just concerns me that if the parent of a child, if a family needed some assistance, they're not documented, they're still human beings that live and coexist with us. And I got to tell you, many of them provide a heck of a good value and service to our community in all kinds of fields. And this is not a liberal conservative issue to me. This is an issue about, well, what if I was in their shoes? That's my concern. That's the brass tacks. It's easy to talk up here and get tough on this kind of stuff, but I don't know if I'd want to be facing a family who wasn't documented because they left some country for fear of their lives, and then they come to America, and yes, they're not here legally, but they're faced with some crisis, and oops, sorry, you can't participate because you're not documented. That's my concern. That is my concern. And I think somewhere along the line, anyway, that's my concern. If anybody wants to say I'm wrong, or if my philosophy is not, doesn't have any value, I'm all ears. But I tend to look at these things in terms of this is law, but What are the values that we care about in America? What are they? What values do we care about in Jacksonville? I can almost assure you that some work that I've had at my house, I don't know whether the people there were documented or not. I have a feeling there might have been two that may not have been. Very productive, wonderful children, making straight A's in schools, yes sir, no sir kids, do whatever they can to try to please. And if one of those that are thousands like that in Jacksonville needed vital help, are they going to be turned away at the door? I don't feel good about that. I'd like to hear what my colleagues have to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlucci. You heard it here first, or you heard it here first, that maybe folks weren't legal working on your house. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was just for fun. He said it. Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Chair, since you used me as an example on that,
Yeah.
I know you're teasing, and I get it. And they weren't children; they were over 18. Okay? So I hope that brings your blood pressure down and you're not intimidated. But just teasing, a little humor. But I'm just saying that people are people, and when you affect a family, though, it can affect children. And I'd like to know just how many not-for-profits in Jacksonville, if they're confronted with particularly if their target market is families, children, whatever, I am sure that a lot of these not-for-profits have interaction with them. Are they going to have to start making a registry and start saying, nope, you're out? I mean, this is real-world stuff to me, and it matters. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Carlucci. I'll note we are speaking on the amendment, which has those three parts. So, Dr. Johnson and Mr. Carrico, do you want to speak on the amendment?
I still needed a little clarification, Mr. Chair. I'm on the bill because I'm not fully aware, and I'm still trying to get through it, of Councilman Amaro's amendments, right, that he put on it. A couple months ago when Councilman Diamond initially proposed this piece of legislation, I kind of went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I had some amended language, but I'm not sure. I think I would probably add it, not obviously at the amendment, but during the bill. And I would appreciate, I did want to speak to the bill, so I do have a few comments, but I do want to make sure that people I would be okay, as Councilman Freeman was saying, I certainly don't want people to show up at the hospital and us not do what is supposed to be our responsibility just as humans, right, to help other humans. And so if taking UF out of it, I can see that, but then what if it's a kid at Nemours? Because see, this is where we get into a little bit of a conundrum, because if a person who was undocumented lives here and has a kid here, which is where that dreamer thing comes in, which is why it should be a federal thing, not something we discuss on the city council. That's another conversation. But if there's a dreamer that is here and they, in many cases, don't even know that their parents are not in this country legally, we end up with this conundrum of saying, hey, we're helping the Nemours or the other different, and that's just what's top of mind, but those other different facilities that help with health care. You don't want to put them in a space where either we can't help them or they can't help people. And that's what's a little confusing for me right now.
And for Dr. Johnson's sake, maybe I'll turn to Ms. LaPera or Ms. Stefopoulos for this. Nemours wouldn't be considered or affected by this contract, right? Because it's only services or contracts let by the city. And unless we have a contract with Nemours, that's private organization willing to use services however it wants.
Through the chair, that's correct. This would only impact recipients of city funds and city dollars.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that's true, with all due respect. But if this piece of legislation passes, as we know, there are other organizations that we could help, and I have to use whatever foresight that I can.
Yeah.
I don't want to restrict the opportunity for us to help, whether it be the Mayo Clinic or whatever. There are organizations that may receive funds from the city, and we're now restricting them. This weekend, my church, the Catholic Church, had the black and white soiree where they were raising money. I'm sure some of the people that are helped through Catholic charities possibly were undocumented. I know that my church has a focus to try to help people who are not documented to be documented and to make sure their papers are done right. But I still don't want to turn people away if they're in this country, as was said earlier, if they are from countries that have major situations going on, and this seems like it will do that. Yeah, we may not have a contract with Mayo or Nemours or someone now, but this legislation will stop that in the future.
Could we confirm, I don't know, maybe Ms. Caraher knows, or Ms. LaPera, do we have any other contracts with any other healthcare providers for indigent healthcare services? And Mr. Boylan, do you think we do?
Mr. Chair, I know for a fact that we do through the PSG process. Volunteers in Medicine comes to mind very quickly. Other free and charitable clinics that also receive PSG funding.
Could, I mean, then someone could proffer, instead of being it as restrictive as Councilman Freeman's current amendment on the table, which is UF Health, could it be for any contracted indigent healthcare services? I don't know if that's within the spirit or if that's something that someone would want to amend the amendment to indicate that, and then we can go back to the introducer and see what introducer thinks. So your concern, I think right now, I think it's a concern of Mr. Carlucci's, Mr. Boylan's, and it was brought up by you, Dr. Johnson, is that if there's another provider that the city is contracting with besides UF to deliver indigent healthcare services, we're exempting UF specifically from this bill, but we might not be exempting another organization that might be providing those services. So, Mr. Freeman.
All right, so thank you, Mr. Chair. My attempt was futile, but yet again, I'm going to land in the place of the reason why UF Health was brought to my attention is because of the magnitude, the footprint that it carries and it has in our region and in our city. One, two, the services that it provides, we all are familiar with them. When we start talking about some of these other ones, the one-offs, and I completely concur, and I'm going to align with the bill sponsor, and that's why I made sure I had dialogue with him. And so I did hear sex trafficking, yes, 100% agree with them. We start talking about some of these other organizations, now we're starting to get into what are the services they provide. What qualifies it? Yes, I have a hard line on some services that organizations provide, and that's not a time this is not the time for that debate. I don't think that was the spirit of this bill. And so if those organizations are negatively affected by this, through the chair to OGC, and a council member wanted to provide funds for those organizations, could they not come with a waiver at a later date? If and when this bill passed, if one of these organizations that I'm hearing may be left out or excluded, are we limited as a body from here on out in perpetuity of not being able to fund them if they needed it, if the will of that body at that time was interested in funding them?
Through the chair to Councilmember Freeman, I'm certain there's a mechanism we could do that. It might require a code change, and we'd have to, it depends what ends up happening with this bill specifically, and then what kind of situation we're talking about in the future. But I'm certain there is some mechanism by which we could do that.
Yes, ma'am. And I threw a softball. That was kind of a rhetorical question, but I wanted to put that out there, is that with 10 votes, you can move a mountain up here. Yeah. And so for me, I believe that and staying as closely aligned with the spirit of the bill that the bill sponsor was passing, with at least my areas of concern, which were indigent care and kids. We've addressed those issues, and we've addressed it with the bill sponsor supporting it. If he didn't support these, I would not be supporting them, because I'm supporting what the bill sponsor is trying to do, the same way I did for our council vice president when they're trying to keep our city safe. I'm going to be right there in lockstep with them. All right. So I am all in on the amendment that's on the floor. If there are any other amendments that are added to it, if the bill sponsor is not supportive of it, I'm not going to be supportive of it. Thank you.
Okay. We're still on the amendment, and we have Mr. Carrico.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was okay with the bill right off the jump, but I appreciate the sponsor being able to have the dialogue and past President Freeman bringing up those issues. I think they're important, and glad you guys can agree on it. I was hesitant to speak at first because of my connection with KHA, with my day job and the conflict, but since that is now out for a year, it looks like possibly with this amendment, and I'm going to tread light, tell me if I need to stop talking. I think it's a good idea to give that a year, and I just want to say to this committee that I'm going to commit to bringing back the co-meetings with the school board and the council, and we can definitely start having that dialogue in July, and we'll try to get one on the books and maybe do that quarterly with the school board and work through that issue. Because in my organization, we default to the school. When they get an application in to have an after-school or summer program with my organization, we look at their school ID number, we use that as verification, and that's our only step right now. So if it lies in the school board, we need to work with them and see that they're putting out all the effort to make sure that we're not spending money on things that we shouldn't. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Over to Mr. Boylan on the amendment.
I think we're heading down a path here, and I'd like to, through the chair, to speak to Mr. Diamond about the prospect of this. I think we're recognizing and acknowledging some of the unintended consequences of this bill. And I like the reporting component of this, to get a handle on just exactly how many unauthorized aliens, if you will, or individuals that we are supporting through the various programs. So if you step back to say step one in this process is to make like a determination through the reporting process, the administration and others, just to say how many people are we servicing that through with city funds. Keep in mind too that in the context of many of these people, although they may be unauthorized immigrants to our community, they probably still are taxpayers in some form or fashion. Would it make sense to step back a little bit and say just how real is this problem for us? And so the monitoring requirements that you're asking for, the reporting requirements you're asking for, seems to make more sense to go down that road first before we cherry pick or pick and choose as to what organizations we're going to exempt from this either permanently or temporarily. So temporarily. Councilman Diamond, would you give some thought or consideration to the idea of putting this into place as a step one of a process to make determination as to how critical this issue is?
Through the chair to Councilman Boylan, I appreciate the question. I think it's upside down, though. It's not the unintended consequences of the bill that I wrote. It's the unintended consequences of 20 million people coming across an open border and the burden that's put on our city, right? That's what it's addressing. That was the mistake that was made. That was the bad policy. Now, not just Jacksonville, but everybody's dealing with this, right? And everybody's having to write bills like this, and they're uncomfortable. They're hard. It's hard to say no to somebody who's a human being, right? But at the same time, if we don't write laws that say the laws matter, if there are no consequences to the laws in Jacksonville, then we become a sanctuary city, and we burden our taxpayers, we burden our police, we burden our fire, we burden our hospitals, and it becomes a massive problem, which is the opposite policy decision other people made. So I appreciate the spirit of what you're saying, 100%. Like, let's go figure out how big of a mountain we're trying to climb. But the answer for me would be no. I'm ready to go with this bill. And it wasn't unintended consequences, other than sex trafficking, which I didn't think of, because those people are not here on purpose and absolutely want to give them services, right? Let's get them help. Everything else was fully intended. I knew what the law was about UF Health. I think the bill is fine the way it's written. I knew what the law was with KJ. I think it's fine the way it's written. But if it gave people more comfort, I was fine to do that.
All right. Okay. Mr. Dennis, are you on the amendment? I'll give you the, no. All right. Let's take a vote on the amendment verbally. All in favor of the Freeman amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. No. All right. The amendment passes. We'll entertain a, yep, we have a motion on the bill as amended. Second. All right. We have a second. Now in the queue, Mr. Diamond, do you care to speak again? All right. We have Dr. Johnson followed by Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I do appreciate my colleague and his work toward this, I find that what he's said is just not rooted in reality. When I look at the things that are said, they seem to be partisan talking points and thus nonsensical. It says here that we were dealing, and I must say that as we deal with this bill, that we were dealing with an open border situation. That's just not true. It may be in his limited view of the world as to what it is, but unfortunately, that's just not, again, in reality. It was not an open border situation, and it wasn't a crisis. In fact, some of the research shows that there were only 324 people that came into this city that were estimated to be illegal. So the 20 million number that my colleague continues to bring up just, again, is nonsensical. It also looks to be that there are federal laws with public housing and public assistance. And when you look at these laws that are put in place, they're meant to protect the people of this community. And when I say this community, I mean the people of America. These federal laws are put in place so that people who are not here legally don't get access to those services. But I think the big thing for me is something that was said earlier by my colleague, Councilman Boyland, about unintended consequences. So often we make these sweeping indictments and we decide that this is the thing that we need to do and this is how we need to do it, and we don't look at the consequences or the faults that come thereof. I spoke earlier as well about those people who may not even know, and I happened to run into someone in that space, not recently, but it happened, a person that I was working out with at the gym, Mr. Chair. The guy didn't know that his parents had him in the United States illegally, had gone to school, had done all the things you were supposed to do, and until he went to try to go to school and work and get his birth certificate and do all the things that you do when moving forward in life, he didn't know that his parents had come to this country illegally. That was one of the reasons why the Dreamers program was so important, because it was about helping people who didn't even know they needed help at the time. And so when I look at a piece of legislation like this, where we blanket and attack organizations that are already taxed with a great deal of work to do, I think we must be more intelligent in the work that we do. We must do more research and understand that we are coming from a place of reality and of trying to help people. My first responsibility is to help our citizens, is to make sure that I'm a good steward of taxpayer dollars. But at the end of the day, I'm still a human. I'm still a person. And so when an unintended consequence means that there are people who may not receive health care or people who may not feel comfortable coming forward and having a conversation, I've got a major issue with that. And I do believe that in many ways, while this may be coming from a good place, and I respect this bill's sponsor, and I certainly consider him a friend, and while I do believe that this is coming from a good place, I just don't believe that it meets the threshold of having the proper research to be a piece of legislation that I can stand behind. Thank you.
All right, and with that, in the queue, we have Mr. Carlucci, followed by Mr. Freeman, and then the administration's coming up at the end there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't support this. It's like a one-size-fits-all, and it's not a one-size-fits-all issue. I think it's going to be very cumbersome, and I think it's placing a real burden on cities, not-for-profits, and hospitals and everything else for something that really belongs to the federal government. But most of all, the comment of unintended consequences, you know what, look, people came through that border under several presidents, including our present president. No disrespect to our present president or any other presidents. We've all contributed to the problem, but it's because people will do anything in the world they can to give their family a future. And I am not for turning away people who really need help. If they're trying to take advantage of the system, turn them away. That's wrong. But if people are trying to find a way to remedy the problem for a child or for an adult, and other than the fact they're not documented, it's a real legitimate need, I try to put myself in their shoes. If I was in their shoes, I don't think I would have swam over here, but if my family was threatened in Venezuela, as a father, as a husband, I would do everything I could to get to America. And then I'd worry about, getting deportated then. But I'd try to buy myself some time. I just, somehow, I think we got to put ourselves in other people's skin, in other people's shoes, and think about that. Yes, we have to, be a country of laws and all that. We also have to be a country of values. And one of those values is taking care of one of others as human beings. That's not liberal. That's not conservative. That's just being normal. It's just being a decent human being. So I can't support this. It's going to cut people out. It's going to place a lot of burdens on a lot of organizations to keep a registry of some sort. And at this time, I thought we weren't interested in registries, but I guess we are here. So I'm just kind of over this kind of nonsense. I'm sorry, Councilman Diamond. I know you feel stronger about this than I do, and you're entitled to that. But this is not a value that I uphold. Thank you.
All right, over to Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One, I want to thank the bill sponsor for one, putting this off a little bit and allowing some time in between the previous bill for putting this forward. Two, thank you for helping me get to a place and working through it to where the areas of my why, at least, kids and the least in our communities are taken care of through this process without to the detriment of the bill and the spirit of the bill. And I'm just going to close with this. We make this debate about those who have come here and how they've come here. And listen, I respect everyone's opinions and their thoughts on it, but what I think is most overlooked are the babies that were born in Jacksonville, Florida, that go to bed hungry at night, the families that aren't able to put food on the table. We're talking more about people who have come here and for whatever their reasons may be, but we keep turning our backs on those that are here. And that's why in this debate, I get a little upset that we're neglecting that. And so therefore, if policies like this save dollars for the city that we can put more into our kids that were born and raised in our city that are facing some challenges and helping them reach their fullest potential, then sign me up for it all day. So I want to thank the bill sponsor. I would like to be added as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Carlucci, can we keep it to 2 minutes or less, please? All right.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. It's very kind of you. This is not about one versus the other. This is not about our children or their children. It's about all children. And everybody has an opportunity. And you can shake your head no all you want to, as some of the council members who are shaking their head, but I have been on the front lines of this, and I've seen it. And if this bill passes, I can tell you one thing: it's not going to be both ways. It's going to be one way, and somebody's going to be left out. But everybody has a chance to receive services from the city of Jacksonville. Everybody does, and if they're not, then we ought to be doing something about it up here. But we talk a lot about food deserts and crime and safety and protecting our families up here. We talk much more about that than we do undocumented immigrants. But these are all human beings, and they all deserve our care and our compassion and our love. Thank you.
Okay, over to the administration, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, through the chair. There's a couple things that I want to bring out. Number one, at the beginning of the bill sponsors, Councilman Diamond's comments, he said that Mayor Deegan wants a sanctuary city, and it's making Jacksonville a sanctuary city. And I just want to go on the record from the administration that is just not true. The Mayor Deegan has never declared city of Jacksonville as a sanctuary city. Also, just want to put on the record that Mayor Deegan and her administration upholds the law. She's taken oath to abide by the law and to enforce the law. So just want to put that on the record. And then also, the administration would like to add, if you'd like to do amendment for any organization knowingly serves undocumented immigrants, undocumented persons that may help this debate go well or move smoother, and we'll be open to that. Thank you.
Okay, that brought more people on the queue. We're going to limit everything to 2 minutes now. Mr. Boylan, followed by Dr. Johnson.
Mr. Dennis was reading my mind. I was focusing now very quickly on the CSG component of this. And there's language here. It says, a recipient of cultural services grants funds shall be prohibited from, and I offer the amendment, the insertion of the word knowingly using any city funds for the provision of. This is not going to be enforceable to any other way. You take a look at the prospect of WJCT having unauthorized aliens watching WJCT, or people attending the symphony or the Florida Theater. So I think the insertion of the word knowingly as part of that section C on page 7 of the bill, I would like to offer that as an amendment.
Can you repeat the amendment, please, sir?
So I'm just adding the word knowingly. A recipient of cultural services grant shall be prohibited from knowingly using any city funds for the provision of services, et cetera.
Mr. Diamond, do you care to comment on that?
Through the chair,
We have a second from Dr. Johnson.
I don't necessarily oppose it. Maybe, and I understand what you're trying to do, Councilman Boylan. Perhaps as it may provide a mechanism by which our nonprofit community won't be having a freak out. Again, I kind of want them to have a freak out and think about how they're spending our taxpayer money. Like, candidly, that's part of the bill, is to set a marker saying we're not doing this. So knowingly is a standard that's very high under the law. I won't oppose it in this committee, but I'd like to think about it before finance tomorrow. So if you all want to adopt it, we can look at it in finance. But today I would say no thank you, but I'm certainly willing to look at it for finance. I'm not saying like this is the worst thing in the world.
Dr. Johnson, is that on the Boylan Amendment, or do you want to wait till we take a vote on the Boylan Amendment? Okay. Let's take this vote by hand. Actually, before we go, Ms. LaPera, will you tell me exactly where the knowingly comes into play here? Once Ms. LaPera is done.
Through the chair to the committee, so the Boylan Amendment would add the word knowingly, following the word prohibited from. It would insert the word prohibited from knowingly using city funds.
Okay.
But only as it pertains to the cultural services.
Grant funds, only as it pertains to the cultural services grant funds.
That's my understanding of the Boylan Amendment. Mr. Boylan could clarify if needed.
That's exactly right, sir. Speaking specifically to the CSG grant program.
Okay, we have Dr. Johnson and Mr. Freeman. Anyone on the amendment? Are you
I'm on the amendment. I have a question. Oh, yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, my question through the chair to, I'm not sure who, but if you could answer this for me. Basically, using the language that's put in with that knowingly space, if there is a place that knowingly, that again, services could be, again, broad. So if there's a place that is working with someone, and then you find out that they are undocumented, but you've helped them, does that then put you in violation? Because you now know, does that mean you stop helping services? That's where this gets a little confusing for me.
Over to Ms. LaPera to answer that question.
Through the chair to Dr. Johnson, so the onus would be on proving whether someone knowingly provided services, right? So you'd have to be able to show that the person knowingly used city funds to provide services to undocumented or illegal aliens.
You see, though, Mr. Chair, this is why these unintended consequences, because if you are in the midst of, whether it be, obviously we're talking PSG in this specific space, but if, or CSG, I'm sorry, if this is a cultural services, my apologies, if there is an issue that you're working with, and I'm just giving you a hypothetical here, you're working with someone, you find out that they are in this state, and you are trying to help them get to another state, and part of the grant that you have to do the work that you're doing is based in the city, you then now have to stop. Do you also need to report them as well to say, I've now found this person is undocumented, I was trying to help them, I found out I have to stop? Again, this legislation, like many things, is still unbaked. The ingredients are not here for an intelligent piece of legislation, and I'll speak when it's my turn later. Thank you.
Over to Mr. Freeman on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to go on record as well. If the bill sponsor says that for now he's okay with it, and then there'll be a discussion in finance tomorrow, for sake of keeping the discussion going, I will support the amendment today, but will reserve the right to change my mind tomorrow as we go into a deeper discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Curlucci, is it on the Boylan Amendment, the word knowingly?
I was in the other executive room at the time, and could somebody please explain the Boylan Amendment to me? I would appreciate it.
Go ahead, Mr. Boylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so for my friend and colleague. So if you look at page 7 of the bill, which speaks specifically to the section on the community service grants, it says, a recipient of cultural service grants funds shall be prohibited from using any city funds. My concern is that many times you'll have entities like the Symphony, Florida Theater, WJCT, who may have patrons of those services or programs that they don't know that these people are unauthorized citizens. So my great fear is that there's a box in the CSG grant application. Are you supporting any unauthorized aliens with your programs? And they're not going to be say, well, yes or no, because they won't know. So if the word knowingly allows them to say, to our best effort, no one that we know is taking advantage of this who is an authorized alien. So that's all. I'm just trying to provide, as Councilman Diamond said, so that the freak out doesn't happen for the CSGs when they have to mark that box.
All right. Seeing no other speakers in the queue, unless you want to finish, you still have the floor.
Clarify one thing, please. So what the Boylan Amendment does through the chair is basically says a box that you check that says, look, I really don't know, but that's not our intent, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay.
All right, seeing no other speakers in the queue, we do have the Boylan Amendment, and I'll just add my two. I'll support it because the introducer didn't say don't support it. He was fine with it, and it doesn't ruin the spirit of his bill, and it's limited to cultural services grants. So we'll take this vote verbally. All those in favor of the Boylan Amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against say no. All right, the Boylan Amendment passes. So now let's entertain a motion on the bill as twice amended. Should we roll them up and make them rules? Yeah, let's not because he wants to talk about it. No rolling. We'll as twice amended. All right, we have a motion and a second on the bill as twice amended. All right, and seeing no other speakers, I've kind of kept quiet on this bill. I'll only add this. Thank you to Councilman Diamond for introducing it, and my main concern on it was merely indigent care. So that's why I was kind of hopping when you were talking before. Thank you to Councilman Freeman for amending it for indigent care. With that, I think it's a good bill, and I'll support it. We have Mr. Miller in the queue, and then we'll take a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, listening to the different projections of numbers and what the magnitude of the problem may be here, I was just curious. So I reached out to JSO, and I said, hey, what do the numbers look like? Just in those we have known were illegal immigrants, or if you want to use undocumented immigrants who have committed crimes. These are just, in less than 5 months, 255 were processed from January 1st to May 22nd. All were found to be illegal, and they had committed crimes. So we want to start talking about it's not a problem. There's 324 or less just here. And so are we making something out of a problem that isn't there? Just want to put it in context. Thank you very much.
All right, 2 minutes, everyone who's already spoken. Dr. Johnson, you're up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
I just learned we have a hard stop at 4 for the committee.
For the committee, right. I want to get through this quickly because I think, we could have moved on, but, when folk want to put in hyperbole and bring stuff up that, I too have done research, and through the chair to my colleague, I too have done research, and the problem is what's called statistically insignificant. While no crime is insignificant in our community and what we do, when we look at data in this way, this is statistical insignificance. Yes, there were 300 plus of those that were found to be undocumented in this city. But when we look at it, it is not the crisis or problem. And for our council to use the lack of intelligence of trying to fearmonger people as if they're people rushing to come over here and take our resources is inherently just wrong. I don't see how we could do that. As I look, I do have a page of amendments. I'm not going to propose them because I do not believe that they will pass. I still don't think this legislation is completely baked. While I do see some merits in it, and I appreciate Councilman Diamond for making this and trying to find a way to a better space, I still don't think that the merits that are presented equal the legislation that has been presented. And so I think, we're still just wrong. But those numbers, while some of them, while they are correct, I spoke to people. When I did the initial deep dive into this, I called INS, I called or the ICE group. I looked at those numbers. I pulled federal data from all kinds of working groups. So for us to sit up here and say that there's this preponderance of this happening in Jacksonville is just completely untrue. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other speakers in the queue, we have a motion on the bill as twice amended. You said something about you're good? Okay, let's open the ballot and record your vote. I know.
5 yeas, 2 nays.
And you didn't get to vote? I've not announced it yet. Can we reopen it? Oh, she announced it. Okay. So do we have a motion to reconsider? And we have a second to move to reconsider. Let's take the... Okay, hold on. We need to take a vote on the verbal vote on the motion to reconsider. All in favor of reconsider, say aye. Aye. All against, say no. We have a move to reconsider. 2025-0138 is back up. We have a motion on the Freeman Amendment. Do we have a second? All right, let's take a verbal vote on the Freeman Amendment. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against, say no. There you go. Freeman Amendment passes. We'll have Mr. Boylan. We have a motion and a second on the Boylan Amendment. All in favor of the Boylan Amendment indicate by saying aye. Aye. All against, say no. Boylan Amendment passes. We have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second to move the bill as twice amended. Now let's open the ballot and record your vote. We went so fast. Do you see it down there, Rockman? Can you take Dr. Johnson's vote verbally? Okay.
5 yeas, 3 nays.
All right, by your vote, 2025-0138 passes. So we have two that we want to quickly get to. The first one is number 15. The council president wants to get to this one. I have a feeling it will go really fast. It's on page 9, 2020.